Hi. I'm going to talk a little bit about the events that happened on the morning of January 28, 1986. At the time, my wife and I were living off of Phillips Highway in Jacksonville, Florida. That's US 1 in the southern part of town. And we're just living in a little trailer park. The only reminder I have of that morning are these old 7x35 binoculars I've had since I was 10 years old. I actually still use them from time to time for astronomy. On the morning of January 28th, the Space Shuttle Challenger was supposed to be going up on STS-51L. This was the Teacher in Space mission, featuring Krista McAuliffe as the teacher in space. My friend Mike Reynolds was one of the candidates for that, so this mission was more important to me in that aspect. The one thing I remember more than anything else as I awoke that dawn was how cold it was. The sky outside was a very dark blue color, and that normally signifies very, very cold weather. I went ahead and grabbed the heaviest coat I had at the time. We weren't making a whole lot of money, and the heaviest coat I had was barely adequate. I went outside, obviously had my binoculars with me, and proceeded down towards the end of the trailer park where I could stand, basically not too far from the office. And at about 2 or 3 minutes before the appointed time, took up my position and would occasionally take my binoculars and look out towards the south-southeast direction I needed to look for the arc of the orbiter as it came up, the arc of the shuttle. When the appointed time arrived, one of my neighbors came out of their place. One thing that really bothered me that morning, we didn't have cable. None of the big networks were carrying the launch, and I felt that was kind of an insult to the entire space program, and especially for as important as this mission was. Instead, I mean, even The Price was Right was on at the time, or it would be coming on shortly. Anyways, as the appointed time approached, one of my neighbors came out of his trailer and walked out onto his deck and was watching. And he said, "Can you see it yet?" And I said, "No." A few seconds later, you could see the thin, wispy trail coming up and arcing over like this. I'm doing this reverse so you can see what the trail looked like, coming up over the trees. From Jacksonville, you can't miss a shuttle going up. The two SRBs are extremely bright, and the two trails that they leave behind, extremely smoky. As the rocket continued to climb, after it reached a certain point, suddenly it flared. It grew from a single point into like an orange cloud. And I stood there watching for a few seconds and then realized something was wrong. I didn't have my binoculars up at that point. I swung my binoculars to my head and I looked, and it didn't look right. And even though the binoculars are only 7 magnification, it was enough to see that something had gone horribly, horribly wrong. I dropped them and let them hang around my neck. And my neighbor said, "Maybe they're just staging," and I said, "It doesn't stage like that." A few seconds later, you can see the two trails from the SRBs as they tried to resume their course, as if their internal guidance was taking them in the direction they knew they needed to go. And just a few seconds later, they exploded. By this time, the cloud was beginning to look like a large and very distant Portuguese man-of-war jellyfish, if you've ever seen one. I had started running. I ran back to the trailer. I'd run back inside. And as soon as I got inside, they interrupted the broadcast, and it was CBS, and Dan Rather came on and began talking about what happened. It devastated me. Not only had I grown up watching the shuttle develop and catching the flights when I could, I had just witnessed something horrible from a distance. It just to see that, it left such a painful mark on my psyche for a very long time. I don't think I stopped crying for a couple of hours that day. It was very, very. It still a very painful memory for me. I went out over the next couple of weeks and started buying up every little bit of space shuttle related stuff I could, because I just had this gut feeling that something like this would be just enough to get the naysayers to have their way and to end manned space flight once and for all in this country. I still have two little die-cast shuttles. I've got a little 200s going and a smaller one that I picked up at the time from still after all these years. It would be a couple of years, obviously, before the shuttle would fly again, talking about late 1988. And it would continue to do so, until 2003, when we would lose Columbia. So close to the same dates, so close to the anniversary of the loss of Challenger and to the even older loss of the Apollo 1 crew. To me, that was a defining moment in what the space program could do, not what the shuttle could do. I've always felt that in the end, the loss of the two shuttles, the two craft, ultimately came down to human factors, not listening to engineers when they really should have been paid heed, but defining what I continue to refer to myself as the big retreat, as we slowly begin stepping back from human space flight. I know that a lot is done with robotics, but we have to keep pushing those frontiers, whether it's robotic, whether it's with human crews in space, whether it's with long-duration missions in Earth orbit. Because I really believe, and I will believe with every fiber of my being, that our ability to maintain a presence in space is going to be crucial to our future. Challenger and the subsequent loss of Columbia both rattled my nerves, and to this day remind me of the risk. They remind all of us of the risk. But I think the bigger tragedy would be to simply turn our backs on the entire endeavor because it may be too dangerous. But I don't think anything could be more important to the existence of life, human life on Earth as we know it, than our ability to get off this planet and to basically move our eggs out of one basket. Thank you.